Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Caitanya-caritāmṛta Wednesday evening class here in Eastern Canada and the Eastern United States at 8 p.m. And we're conducting these regular classes and discussions on the books of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, and we're using the original, unadulterated, unchanged books as our mandate for our preaching work worldwide. These books, Prabhupada declared, were law books for mankind for the next 10,000 years. And unfortunately, they have been changed. I recently saw an article written by a devotee. I can't recall the name, but he brought up the situation in the editing versions of the books by the ISKCON movement, and I wanted to show them to you for a minute. Here it is at the back cover. You can see there's quite a bit of a change here. And he made a comment which I thought was very revealing, because Prabhupada was very diligent about what he did for the propagation of the mission. And we all know that Prabhupada had a certain understanding of life in India during the Mahatma Gandhi period. And he wasn't a fan of Mahatma Gandhi in the end. He left that movement and then joined Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada in the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya. But here we have at the back of the Gita here, this yellow Gita that they produced, they took off the statements by Professor Dimmock, who Prabhupada loved to read because it was a very unbiased and excellent review of his work by a professor of Vaishnava studies from Chicago. And they replaced it with quotes from Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Mahatma Gandhi. So there's an interesting post on our Prabhupada Disciples group page that I would encourage you to go and see. It's a very well-written commentary on this change on the back of the book, and especially the reference to Mahatma Gandhi being on the back of the Bhagavad Gita when Prabhupada never saw him as a devotee of Krishna in terms of his actions or in his speech. So quite an offensive thing. And, you know, it's the evidence is right there on these other Gitas that they've published. So these changed books are not according to Prabhupada's, how can we say, instructions, which he was meticulous in everything that he did. And that leads me into our reading of Prabhupada's diary, his daytimer. This daytimer, if you've ever kept a daytimer, I know some of us at our age, nowadays people don't refer to them as daytimers. They're more computerized management systems of time. But for many of us, I have made all my daytimers moving through my life on notebooks and different systems. So that's exactly what Prabhupada had. He had this system here. See that? So he would write things down. Prabhupada told us to remember in the Kali Yuga, Vinkat means to write down. If you don't write it down, you'll forget it. Just like locking things up. If you don't lock it up, you'll lose it. Of course, that's the case in most places. Nowadays, everybody's stealing, but this particular day timer goes back to February 4th, 1966. And I hope you can read it. I'm sending it by phone message to Vinkat in Bangalore so that we all get a chance to read them. I don't know if I've made it proper, but I'll still read it for all of us. Yeah, there, it's not too bad. So I just, before I read February 4th, I was looking at February 3rd again, and I wanted to just read the back of it. I don't think Vinkat has it, but it says, "These American cannot understand even a word's meaning of the Sankirtan, and yet they were so much attracted. It is all Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's power. There is no credit for me. One set of books sold $13, no expenditures." February 4th, 1966. It's a Friday. 330 days to the end of the year. Engagement with Mr. Henry J. Levy, buyer of Messrs. Benetano's at 9:30 a.m., 566 Fifth Avenue, New York. Mr. Levy was seen, but he has no scope for selling my books. One set book delivered to Orientalia against price deposited yesterday. One book taken back from Mrs. Paragon from Book Gallery. Received one letter from Tirtha Maharaj. On his asking for the letter of the donor, he has been given the letter from Sri Padmapat Singhananiya and requested him to sanction for exchange of not less than, is that, Vinkat, is that 10,000? Is that 1 million rupees? I think it is.
It's 10 lakh. Yeah, it's 1 million.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So 1 million rupees, which was a lot of money back then. Expenditures, 30 cents. One Indian businessman met. His name is Rabindra Srivatsava, a care of CG Trading Corporation, dealing in carpets. His address registered. And so the footnote is Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj, head of the Gaudiya Math, the main branch of the Gaudiya Math. And we're on February, let's see if I can get the page. February 5th, 1966, New York. One letter received from the president, case of Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. He declined to help the cause. I shall reply the letter. Vegetables, 31 cents. And rubbing alcohol, 43 cents. Total expenditures, 74 cents. Srila Prabhupada used rubbing alcohol as an aftershave lotion. That's what he said. Alcohol's for the exterior of the body, not for the interior. Sunday, February 6th. President Case replied to this letter. Koan with Salak and other two ladies attended today's meeting. I took meals at Dr. Mishra's apartment. There was no expenditure. And then Monday, February 7th, 1966. Today received one letter from Chandra Shekhar with enclosure of P.F. Sri Krishna's letter. Professor P.F. Sri Krishna has supplied some addresses for which Lampert Export Company is noted. Expenditure, butter and fruits, 71 cents. 71 cents. One letter sent to Sally to send 25 sets to Paragon immediately. So it appears the books are moving. And she's keeping them in Pennsylvania, and she's shipping them off to the warehouse there. And February 8th, the Tuesday of 1966, February 8th, Tuesday, February 8th, Mr. Larry Bogart called today by me on phone. He advised to remind Mr. Morrow by letter. So I have sent him one letter today asking for immediate review. Purchase postage, $2.10. Today, Dr. Mishra returned from Florida. Cohen and Salak did not come today as promised. And I think that's all I sent you, Venkat? Is that it? I believe so.
Yes.
Okay, so February 9th, we'll read on Saturday morning from the Prabhupada Disciples Association classes and discussions for everyone's sadhana program, which has now become a global program and an opportunity for people all over the world to hear the truth about Prabhupada's teachings. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to ask Venkat Prabhu to please bring up the Kirtan, and we'll begin the class, Caitanya-caritamrta, after the bhajan, I should say, with His Grace Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu from California. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Amaspa Paramahansa Parivrajaga-ācārya Sattva Small Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki Jai. Nāma-ācārya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivāsādi Gaur Bhakti ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Bhog Gopinath Sam Khanda Radha Khanda Giri Godhan ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Navadvip Dham ki Jai. Ganga Mai ki Jai. Jamuna Mai ki Jai. New Dwarka Dham ki Jai. Swami Bhaktivedanta ki Jai. All glories to the Assemblity. All glories to the Assembly. Thank you very much.
All glories to you, Sri Prabhupada. All glories to you, Prabhupada.
Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam. Narayanam Namaskrityam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Tato Jayam Mudirayat. First, we will read a few verses from the first chapter of the Adi Lila of the original Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, chapter 1, text 18 to 22. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Glory to Sri Caitanya and Nityananda. Glory to Advaita Chandra. And glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura, Lord Chaitanya. Text 19. Etina Thakur Gaudiya ke kariye chenayatmasat. Etinera charana vandana tire morenat. Translation. These three deities of Vrindavana, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinatha, have absorbed the heart and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Lord Chaitanya. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. Text 20. Grantera Rambikari Mangala Charana Guru Vaishnava Bhagavanti Nirasmarana. In the beginning of this narration, simply by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, and the personality of Godhead, I have invoked their benedictions. Text 21. Tinera smaranayai vigna vinashana anayasayai nijavanchita purana. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill his own desires. Text 22. Se mangala charanoi trivida prakar vastu nirdesha shiravada namaskara. The invocation involved three processes: defining the objective, offering benedictions, and offering obeisances. So thanks everybody for participating in this reading and discussion on Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. Today we'll be reading from chapter number 2, text 100. 100?
101.
101. It's to be noted that this reading is from the original, non-adulterated, non-edited Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, and we are reading chapter 2, text 101. Chit Shakti Swarup Shakti Antaranga Nama Tahar Vaibhava Ananta Vaikuntadi Dhama. Synonyms: Chit Shakti, spiritual energy, Swarup Shakti, personal energy. Antaranga, internal. Nama, name. Tahara, of that. Vaibhava, manifestations. Ananta, unlimited. Vaikunta Adi, Vaikunta, etc. Dhamma, abodes. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The Chit Shakti, which is also called Swarup Shakti or Antaranga Shakti, displays many varied manifestations. It sustains the kingdom of God and its paraphernalia. It's to be noted that all the synonyms, translation, and purports and commentaries by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Text 102. Maya Shakti Bhariranga Jagat Karana Tahara Vaibhava Ananta Brahmandira Gana. Maya Shakti, the illusory energy. Bahiranga, external. Jagat Karana, the cause of the universe. Tahara, of that. Vaibhava, manifestations. Ananta, unlimited. Brahma Andira, of universes. Gana, multitudes. Translation by His Divine Grace. The external energy called Maya Shakti is the cause of innumerable universes with varied material potencies. Text 103. Jiva Shakti Tatastakya Nahiyar Anta Mukhyatina Shakti Tara Viveda Ananta. Jiva Shakti, the energy of the living entity. Tatastha-akya, known as marginal. Nahi, there is not. Yara, of which. Anta, end. Mukhya, principle. Tina, three. Shakti, energies. Tara, of them. Vibheda, varieties. Ananta, unlimited. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The internal potency of the Lord, which is called Chit Shakti or Antaranga Shakti, exhibits variegatedness in the transcendental Vaikuntha cosmos. Besides ourselves, there are unlimited numbers of liberated living beings who associate with the personality of Godhead in His innumerable features. The material cosmos displays the external energy in which the conditional living beings are provided all liberty to go back to the personality of Godhead after leaving the material tabernacle. The Shvetashvara Upanishad 6.8 informs us, Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, natat samascha bhyadikascha drishyate, Parasya Shaktir Vivideva Shruyate Swabhaviti Jnana Balakriyacha. The Supreme Lord is one without a second. He has nothing to do personally, nor does he have material senses. No one is equal to him, nor greater than him. He has unlimited, varied potencies of different names, which exist within him as autonomous attributes and provide him with full knowledge, power, and pastimes. Text 104. Imata Swarupa Ganartina Shakti Sabara Shraya Krishna Krishna Sabara Stiti. Imata, in this way, Swarupa Gana, personal forms, Ara, and Tina, three. Shakti, energies. Sabara, of the whole assembly. Ashraya, the shelter. Krishna, Lord Krishna. Krishna, in Lord Krishna. Sabara, of the whole assembly. Stiti, the existence. Translation. These are the principal manifestations and expansions of the personality of Godhead and his three energies. They are all emanations from Sri Krishna, the transcendence. They have their existence in him. Yadyapi Brahmanda Ganera Purusha Asraya Se Purusha Disabara Krishna Mulashraya Yadyapi, although Brahma Andaganera, of the multitude of universes, Purusha, the Purusha avatar, Ashraya, the shelter, say that Purusha Adi, of the Purusha avatars, etc., Sabara, of the assembly, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Mula Ashraya, original source. Translation. Although the three Purushas are the shelter of all universes, Lord Krishna is the original source of the Purushas. Text 106. Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Krishna Sarvashraya Paramaishvara Krishna Sarvashastrakaya. Swayam, himself, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Sarva Ashraya, the shelter of all, Parama, Supreme, Ishvara, Lord, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Sarva Shastre, all scriptures, Kaya, say. Translation. Thus, the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the original primeval Lord, the source of all other expansions. All the revealed scriptures accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Lord. Text 107. Ishvaraha Paramakrishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Ishvaraha, the controller, Paramaha, supreme, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Sat, eternal, existence, Chit, absolute knowledge, Ananda, absolute bliss, Vigraha, whose form, Anadihi, without beginning, Adihi, the origin, Govinda, Lord Govinda, Sarvakarana Karanam, the cause of all causes. Translation. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. Purport. This is the first verse of the 5th chapter of Brahma Samhita, text 108. Isaba siddhanta tumijana bhalamati tabhu purva paksha kara atma chalayati. These, Saba, all, Siddhanta, conclusions, to me, you, Jana, no, Bhalamate, in a good way, Tabu, still, Purvapaksha, objection, Kara, you make, Uma, to me, Chalayate, to give useless anxiety. Translation. You know all the conclusion of the scriptures very well. You create these logical arguments just to agitate me. Purport. A learned man who has thoroughly studied the scriptures cannot hesitate to accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If such a man argues about this matter, certainly he must be doing so to agitate the minds of his opponents. Text 109. Se Krishna avatari Vrajendra Kumar Apani Caitanya Rupe Kaila Avatar, say that Krishna, Lord Krishna, Avatari, the source of all incarnations, Vrajendra Kumara, the son of the king of Vraja, Apane, personally, Caitanya Rupe, in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kaila, made, Avatara, incarnation. Translation: that same Lord Krishna, the fountainhead of all incarnations, is known as the son of the king of Vraja. He has descended personally as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 110. Atoeva Chaitanya Gosai Paratattva Sima Tandrakshiru Dashayikahi Kitandra Mahima. Atoeva, therefore, Chaitanya Gosai, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Paratattva Sima, the highest limit of the absolute truth, Tanre, him, Kshiro Dashayi, Kshiro Dakashayi Vishnu, Kahi, if I say, Ki, what? Tanra, of him, Mahima, glory. Translation: therefore, Lord Chaitanya is the supreme absolute truth. To call him Kshiro Dakshayi Vishnu does not add to his glory. Text 111. Seta Bhaktira Vakya Nahe Vyabhichari Sakala Sambhavitante Yati Avatari. Say that, ta, certainly, Bhaktira, of a devotee, Vakya, speech, Nahe, is not, Vyabhichari, deviation, Sakala, all, Sambhave, possibilities, Tante, in him, Yate, since, Avatari, the source of all incarnations. Translation: but such words from the lips of a sincere devotee cannot be false. All possibilities abide in him, for he is the primeval Lord. Text 112. Avatarira dehe sabha avatira stiti keho konamate kahe yemana yaramati. Avatarira, of the source, dehe, in the body, sabha, all, avatarira, of the incarnations, stiti, existence, keho, someone, onamate, in some way, kahe, says, yemana, as in the manner, yara, of whom, mati, the opinion. Translation: all other incarnations are potentially situated in the original body of the primeval Lord. Thus, according to one's opinion, one may address him as any one of the incarnations. Purport: it is not contradictory for a devotee to call the Supreme Lord by any one of the various names of his plenary expansions, because the original personality of Godhead includes all such categories. Since the plenary expansions exist within the original person, one may call him by any of these names. In the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, Madhya 695, Lord Chaitanya says, I was lying asleep in the ocean of milk, but I was awakened by the call of Nada, Sri Advaita Prabhu. Here the Lord refers to his form as Kshiro Dakshayi Vishnu. Text 113. Krishna ke kahaye ke ho nara narayana, ke ho kahe Krishna hai sakshat vamana. Krishna ke, Lord Krishna, kahaye, says, keha, someone, naranarayana, naranarayana, keho, someone, kahe, says, Krishna, Lord Krishna, hai, is, sakshat, directly, vamana, Lord Vamana. Translation. Some say that Sri Krishna is directly Nara-Narayana. Others say that he is directly Vamana. Text 114. Keho kahe Krishna kshiroda shayi avatara. Asambhava nahe satya vachana sabara. Keho, someone. Kahe, says. Krishna, Lord Krishna. Kshirodashayi, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Avatara, incarnation. Asambhava, impossible. Nahe, is not. Satya, true. Vachana, speeches. Sabara, of all. Translation. Some say that Krishna is the incarnation of Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. None of these statements is impossible. Each is as correct as the others. Purport. The Lagu Bhagavatamrita states, Ataeva Puranado Kechin Narasakatmatam Mahindra Nujatam Kechit Kshirabdi Sayitam Sahasra Shirshatam Kechit Vaikunthanatatam Bruyuhu Krishnasya Munayas Tattad Vriti Anugaminaha. Lagu Bhagavatamrita 5:383. According to the intimate relationships between Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord, and his devotees, the Puranas describe him by various names. Sometimes he is called Narayana, sometimes Upendra, Vamana, the younger brother of Indra, king of heaven, and sometimes Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Sometimes he is called the thousand-hooded Sheshanaga, and sometimes the Lord of Vaikuntha. Text 115. Keho kahe paravyoma narayana hari, sakala sambhavi Krishna yati avatari. Keho, someone. Kahe, says. Paravyome, in the transcendental world. Narayana, Lord Narayana. Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sakala Sambhave, all possibilities. Krishna, in Lord Krishna. Yate, since. Avatari, the source of all incarnations. Translation. Some call him Hari, or the Narayana of the transcendental world. Everything is possible in Krishna, for he is the primeval Lord. Text 116. Sabashruta ganera kari charana vandan, isaba siddhanta shuna kari ekamana. Saba, all, shruta ganera, of the hearers. Kari, I do. Charana, to the lotus feet. Vandana, praying. These. Saba, all. Siddhanta, conclusions. Shuna, please hear. Kari, making. Eka, one. Mana, mine. Translation. I offer my obeisances unto the feet of all who hear or read this discourse. Kindly hear with attention the conclusion of all these statements. Purport. Prostrating himself at the feet of his readers, the author of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta entreats with them in all humility to hear with rapt attention these conclusive arguments regarding the absolute truth. One should not fail to hear such arguments, because only by such knowledge can one perfectly know Krishna. Siddhanta balya chitte nakara alas, yaete Krishnoete sudridamanas. Siddhanta, conclusion. Balya, considering. Chitte, in the mind. Nakara, do not be. Alasa, lazy. Iha, this. Oite, from. Krishna, in Lord Krishna. Lage, becomes fixed. Sudrida, very firm. Manasa, the mind. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. Purport. There are many students who, in spite of reading Bhagavad Gita, misunderstand Krishna because of imperfect knowledge and conclude him to be an ordinary historical personality. This one must not do. One should be particularly careful to understand the truth about Krishna. If because of laziness one does not come to know Krishna conclusively, one will be misguided about the cult of devotion. Like those who declare themselves advanced devotees and imitate the transcendental symptoms sometimes observed in liberated souls. Although the use of thoughts and arguments is the most suitable process for inducing an uninitiated person to become a devotee, neophytes in devotional service must always alertly understand Krishna through the vision of the revealed scriptures, the bona fide devotees, and the spiritual master. Unless one hears about Sri Krishna from such authorities, one cannot make advancement in devotion to Sri Krishna. The revealed scriptures mention 9 means of attaining devotional service, of which the first and foremost is hearing from authority. The seed of devotion cannot sprout unless watered by the process of hearing and chanting. One should submissively receive the transcendental messages from spiritually advanced sources and chant the very same message for one's benefit as well as the benefit of one's audience. When Brahma described the situation of pure devotees freed from the culture of empiric philosophy and fruitive actions, he recommended the process of hearing from persons who are on the path of devotion. Following in the footsteps of such liberated souls who are able to vibrate real transcendental sound can lead one to the highest stage of devotion, and thus one can become a Mahabhagavata. From the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami, we learn Shastra Yukte Sunipuna Drida Shadayanra Uttamadikari Sitaraye Samsara. Caitanya-caritāmṛta Madhya Lila 22:65. A person who is expert in understanding the conclusion of the revealed scriptures and who fully surrenders to the cause of the Lord is actually able to deliver others from the clutches of material existence. Srila Rupa Goswami in his Upadeshamrita advises that to make rapid advancement in the cult of devotional service, one should be very much active and should persevere in executing the duties specified in the revealed scriptures and confirmed by the spiritual master. Accepting the path of liberated soul and the association of pure devotees enriches such activities. Imitation devotees who wish to advertise themselves as elevated Vaishnavas, who do therefore imitate the previous acharyas but do not follow them in principle, are condemned in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam as stone-hearted. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura has commented on their stone-hearted condition as follows. Bahirashru pulakayoho satorapi yadhridayam navikriyeta tadasmasaram iti kanishtadikarinam eva ashrapulakadi matve apiyasma sararidayataya nindesha. Those who shed tears by practice, but whose hearts have not changed, are to be known as stone-hearted devotees of the lowest grade. Their imitation crying, induced by artificial practice, is always condemned. The desired change of heart referred to above is visible in reluctance to do anything not congenial to the devotional way. To create such a change of heart, conclusive discussion about Sri Krishna and his potencies is absolutely necessary. False devotees may think that simply shedding tears would lead one to the transcendental plane, even if one has not had a factual change in heart. But such a practice is useless if there is no transcendental realization. False devotees lacking the conclusion of transcendental knowledge think that artificially shedding tears will deliver them. Similarly, other false devotees think that studying books of the previous acharyas is unadvisable, like studying dry empiric philosophies. But Srila Jiva Goswami, following the previous acharyas, has inculcated the conclusions of the scriptures in the 6 theses called the Shat Sandarbhas. False devotees who have very little knowledge of such conclusion fail to achieve pure devotion for want of zeal in accepting the favorable directions for devotional service given by self-realized devotees. Such false devotees are like impersonalists who also consider devotional service no better than ordinary fruitive actions. Text 118. Caitanya Mahima Jane Saba Siddhante Chittadridhana Lage Mahima Jnana Hoete Caitanya Mahima. The glory of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jani, I know. These, Saba, all. Siddhante, by the conclusion. Chitta, the mind. Dhrida, firm. Ana, becoming. Lage, becomes fixed. Mahima Jnana, knowledge of the greatness. Oite, from. Translation. By such conclusive studies, I know the glories of Lord Chaitanya. Only by knowing these glories can one become strong and fixed in attachment to him. Purport. One can know the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only by reaching, in knowledge, a conclusive decision about Sri Krishna, strengthened by bona fide study of the conclusion of the Acharyas. Text 119. Caitanya Prabhura Mahima Kahi Bharatore, Krishnera Mahima Kahi Kariya Vistare, Caitanya Prabhura, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahima, the glories, Kahi Bharatore, for the purpose of speaking, Krishnera, of Lord Krishna, Mahima, the glories, Kahi, I speak, Kariya, doing, Vistare, in expansion. Translation. Just to enunciate the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I have tried to describe the glories of Sri Krishna in detail. Text 120. Caitanya Gosayera etatva nirupana, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Brajendra-nandana, Caitanya Gosayanira, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this, tattva, of the truth, nirupana, settling, Swayam Bhagavan, himself the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Brajendra-nandana, the son of the king of Vraja. Translation. The conclusion is Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the son of the king of Vraja. Text 121. Sri Rupa Gunapade Jara As, Caitanya-caritāmṛta Kahe Krishna Das, Sri Rupa, Srila Rupa Goswami, Raghunatha, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Pade, at the lotus feet. Yara, whose? Asha, expectation. Caitanya-caritāmṛta, the book named Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Kahe describes Krishna Dasa, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rup and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Adi Lila, 2nd chapter, describing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad Vandanam Khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatehi Visheshataham Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadhadara, Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Sri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha, Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So basically, we have here a very important section of Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Why? It's very simple. It's not very complicated. Basically, what it is Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami giving conclusive evidence about the position of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In other words, in order to understand Lord Krishna, and in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have to be very, very careful in studying the conclusions given by the great Acharyas. It's not something that's difficult to understand. It is not complicated. It is simple. In other words, one cannot manufacture his own understanding of the philosophy. One has to take shelter of the Acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, who follows the directions and teachings of all the Acharyas in our Sampradaya. It's not difficult. Prabhupada refers in one of these purport very nicely to the Satsandarbhas of Jiva Goswami. So the question will be, well, we don't have knowledge of Sanskrit or Bengali, most devotees don't. So how do we understand? The point is that Prabhupada has summarized all the conclusions of the great acharyas such as Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Jiva Goswamis, all the other great acharyas in his books. It is not something which is complicated to understand. We have seen here in one of these texts here, particularly Siddhanta Baliya Chitte Lakara Alas, text number 117. Now, this is a very important verse that Srila Prabhupada has quoted many times in various purports. Why is that? We see in the purport, Prabhupada is advising in the first paragraph, one should be particularly careful to understand the truth about Krishna. If because of laziness one does not come to know Krishna conclusively, one will be misguided about the cult of devotion. And Prabhupada is explaining how one can understand Krishna properly. Prabhupada says, neophytes in devotional service must always alertly understand Krishna through the vision of the revealed scriptures, the bona fide devotees, and the spiritual master. Unless one hears about Sri Krishna from such authorities, one cannot make advancement in devotion to Sri Krishna. The revealed scriptures mention 9 means of attaining devotional service, of which the first and foremost is hearing from authority. The seed of devotion cannot sprout unless watered by the process of hearing and chanting. One should submissively receive the transcendental messages from spiritually advanced sources and chant the very same messages for one's own benefit as well as the benefit of one's audience. Prabhupada refers in the second paragraph, following in the footsteps of such liberated souls who are able to vibrate real transcendental sound, can lead one to the highest stage of devotion and thus become a Mahabhagavata. Now, why is this so important? It's very easy to understand. It's not complicated. Prabhupada, many times in his writings, is constantly emphasizing the importance of hearing from a pure devotee, hearing submissively from great authorities. Now, Prabhupada states in the Bhagavatam, this is the 4th canto, chapter 20, text number 25, 4, 20, 25. The verse says, my dear Lord, you are glorified by the selected verses uttered by great personalities. Such glorification of your lotus feet is just like saffron particles. When the transcendental vibration from the mouths of great devotees carries the aroma of the saffron dust of your lotus feet, the forgetful living entity gradually remembers his eternal relationship with you. Devotees thus gradually come to the right conclusion about the value of life. My dear Lord, I therefore do not need any other benediction, but the opportunity to hear from the mouth of your pure devotee. Purport by His Divine Grace. It is explained in the previous verse that one has to hear glorification of the Lord from the mouth of a pure devotee. This is further explained here. The transcendental vibration from the mouth of a pure devotee is so powerful that it can revive the living entity's memory of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In our material existence, under the influence of illusory Maya, we have almost forgotten our eternal relationship with the Lord, exactly like a man sleeping very deeply who forgets his duties. In the Vedas, it is said that every one of us is sleeping under the influence of Maya. We must get up from this slumber and engage in the right service, for thus we can properly utilize the facility of this human form of life. As expressed in a song by Thakur Bhaktivedanta, Lord Chaitanya said, Jiv Jago, Jiv Jago. The Lord asks every sleeping living entity to get up and engage in devotional service so that his mission in this human form of life may be fulfilled. This awakening voice comes through the mouth of a pure devotee. A pure devotee always engages in the service of the Lord, taking shelter of his lotus feet, and therefore he has a direct connection with the saffron mercy particles that are strewn over the lotus feet of the Lord. Although when a pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice may resemble the sound of this material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. As soon as a sleeping living entity hears the powerful voice emanating from the mouth of a pure devotee, immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord, although up until that moment he had forgotten everything. For a conditioned soul, therefore, it is very important to hear from the mouth of a pure devotee who is fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord without any material desire, speculative knowledge, or contamination of the modes of material nature. Every one of us is kuyogi because we have engaged in the service of this material world, forgetting our eternal relationship with the Lord as his eternal loving servants. It is our duty to rise from the Kuyoga platform to become Suyogis, perfect mystics. The process of hearing from a pure devotee is recommended in all Vedic scriptures, especially by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One may stay in his position of life, it does not matter what it is, but if one hears from the mouth of a pure devotee, he gradually comes to the understanding of his relationship with the Lord and thus engages in his loving service, and his life becomes completely perfect. Therefore, this process of hearing from the mouth of a pure devotee is very important for making progress in the line of spiritual understanding. Now, somebody may ask, why read this particular purport? When we see the language Prabhupada is using here about the power of a pure devotee's voice, he says the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. And it's quite significant. Vishwakarma Prabhu raised the issue a few lectures back, a few discussions back, when he said that it is a very unique time that Srila Prabhupada came in, that we have this technology with tape recorders, audio recordings, computers, new technology that was not available 100 years, 200 years, 500 years ago. We don't have the lectures of Jiva Goswami or the conversations of Vishwanath Chakravarti. We have their purports, but what we have here is the voice of a powerful devotee like Srila Prabhupada. Just like in the beginning of this recording, Venkat Prabhu played Srila Prabhupada chanting Jai Radha Madhava. And actually I sent an email to him and I said, it is so real. When you listen to Prabhupada's voice, when you look at his audio and his video, how can anybody see that he is not living there? Prabhupada is confirming here. That voice is very powerful. Why? Because he's in direct contact with Lord Krishna, with God. It is not complicated to understand. And if one tries to substitute his physicality and tries to put the toll gate between Srila Prabhupada and newcomers, that is the greatest offense. That should not be done. People should submissively hear from the pure devotee Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for that wonderful reading, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, and your scholarly explanation of Prabhupada's purports to give us a clearer understanding of how to practice Krishna consciousness properly. And Prabhupada describes this in this purport on page 119, 160, where he says, just going down, the verse is, a sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusion, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. So moving down here in the purport, although the use of thoughts and arguments is a most suitable process for inducing an uninitiated person to become a devotee, neophytes in devotional service must always alertly understand Krishna through the vision of the revealed scriptures. 1. 2. The bona fide devotees. And 3. The spiritual master. Unless one hears about Sri Krishna from such authorities, one cannot make advancement in devotion to Sri Krishna. So this watering process takes place in 3 ways: through the scriptures and from Srila Prabhupada directly, and from the bona fide. Prabhupada refers to them as the bona fide devotees. Now, Yaśodā-nandana and I have discussed this point, that when Prabhupada was writing these purports, who was he relating to? Venkat, do you know who he was relating to when he writes these intimate pastimes concerning devotees? I'll give the answer so that you don't have to guess. He's referring to his godbrothers, most specifically. And he's explaining in these purports, imitation devotees who wish to advertise themselves as elevated Vaishnavas, further on in the purport, on page 161, imitation devotees who wish to advertise themselves as elevated Vaishnavas, who therefore imitate the previous acharyas but do not follow them in principle, are condemned in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam as stone-hearted. And then further down, their imitation crying induced by artificial practice is always condemned. The desired change of heart referred to above is visible in reluctance to do anything not congenial to the devotional way. To create such a change of heart, conclusive discussion about Sri Krishna and his potencies is absolutely necessary. False devotees may think that simply shedding tears will lead one to the transcendental plane, even if one has not had a factual change of heart. By such a practice is useless if there is no transcendental realization. False devotees lacking the conclusion of transcendental knowledge think that artificially shedding tears will deliver them. Interesting. Artificially shedding tears. Now, what happened in Toronto, Yaśodā Prabhu, and I mentioned it recently, and I just had a discussion with our godbrother, Bhaktivedanta Dāsa, I should say, in Thailand this morning online, over some pictures he had been putting up of various people in the Gaudiya Math that he has served and helped after Prabhupada's demise. So I told him, frankly, that we as a group, our group of 9,000 members on the Prabhupada Disciples Association Facebook page, we are simply focused on Srila Prabhupada as our Siksha and Diksha Guru. And I sent what had happened. I had sent the picture, I had posted the letter that I got from Prabhupada on November 9th, 1975. Could you please bring it up for me, Venkat Prabhu, so everyone could see this? Let me just get this here. Dear Fish for Karma Prabhu, please accept my blessings. I'm in due receipt of your letter dated September 3rd, 1975, with the enclosed statement about Bon Maharaj. So I have now issued orders that all my disciples should avoid all of my godbrothers. They should not have any dealings with them, nor even correspondence, nor should they give them any of my books, or should they purchase any of their books. Neither should you visit any of their temples. Please avoid them. Now, somehow this Prabhu, this godbrother of mine, reinterpreted these words. And he's saying, oh, it's only applicable to you. Now, if you read the words, Prabhupada says, all my disciples should avoid all of my godbrothers. Now, why did he send this letter? Then Bhagavat or Bhaktidas misinterpreted why he sent the letter to me. And I explained to him, you don't have any idea why he sent it. And I'll explain to you, all of you tonight, why he sent it. I think I've told it before, Vinkata, in the talk. Bon Maharaj had come to Toronto under the invitation of Professor Joseph O'Connell to speak at the University of Toronto on Chaitanya Vaishnavism. And we were invited to meet him. I was quite excited to meet him at Joseph O'Connell's house. So I went with a godbrother of mine. We went there to his house and we met Bon Maharaj. He was very pleasant. And but we noticed a few things about him. One was he had no danda. He also wasn't wearing tilak. He had no neck beads. He had no japa beads that we could see displayed. So despite that, we didn't really connect the dots, if I could say. And we invited him to also speak at the Toronto, at the temple on Gerrard Street, 187 Gerrard Street. We had a house with 50 devotees living in it. So he came for the Sunday feast. We had a small congregation of Indian people there, and we were all in the temple room with him, and then he started to talk about Radha and Krishna, and all of a sudden, guess what happened? He started crying, weeping tears in front of Radha Gopinath, doing exactly what Prabhupada said you shouldn't do in these purports. Exhibit these symptoms of ecstasy, especially publicly like he did. So what we did is we got up, all of us, all the brahmacharis and the devotees, and we left the temple room. At least we were smart enough to know not to stay there. So this was the case that was practically demonstrated to us in the association of Bon Maharaj. And Prabhupada had Satsrup call me up and ask me all these questions. Did he have a dhoti? Did he have a danda? Did he have a sika? Did he have neck beads? He wanted to know everything about his features. And then he sent that profound letter and told us, do not associate with my godbrothers. So this is something that I think all of our groups should be aware of, because Prabhupada wasn't speaking about the current gurus, unauthorized gurus that pretend they're like Lord Chaitanya. You see the pictures of them. They're like, got these poses and they're carrying on like they're in some kind of transcendental state of ecstasy. And they're manufacturing different interpretations of the philosophy called bridge preaching. Bridge preaching. Or as we know, in Australia, the GBC man there, he calls it post-Prabhupada books. In other words, Yaśodā just told us in the class, he read that beautiful passage from Prabhupada where Prabhupada is telling us that what you hear from the spiritual master, you should simply repeat to others. Do not change what I say. So Prabhupada gave us direct instructions in a letter to me and other letters that have come out to do that. Do not change anything. Just repeat. It's simple. Become a conduit for this transcendental knowledge. And this way you'll be potent, not become the new Tony Robbins. Hey, Vinkat, Prabhu? I sent Vinkat Prabhu a video of one of our God brothers from the Silicon Valley, who's a guru in the elected guru system. And he's giving these talks like, get up every day, make sure you write things down, follow them every day, and you'll remember who you are. And when you remember who you are, you'll be happy. And this way, you'll have a good rest tonight when you go to sleep. Thank you. This is not Prabhupada preaching. This is Sahajism at its highest level. And this kind of direction is given to us in this particular reading by Srila Prabhupada this evening, conducted by Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, if you could please comment.
I'm looking at a comment here that was posted on the chat. It says, great clarification for what concerned the fact that one has to hear from the mouth of a pure devotee. A point that many use to sustain the fact that we need a living pure devotee from where to hear from, and at the same time they use this Bhagavatam statement to put themselves as pure devotees, bringing ahead the Guru Parampara. Thank you very much. And I just went online and saw a statement by Srila Prabhupada, where Prabhupada is saying in a letter to a devotee named Bahudak, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And Prabhupada is saying, I was very glad to learn how our devotees are coming out victorious in the preaching to the university professors and students. Other groups have no philosophy, nor do they have any idea of spiritual life, what to speak of living it. Our movement is authorized. Our books are based on the statements of the most exalted devotees. And if we follow strictly the guidelines for devotional service, as they are given in the nectar of devotion and nectar of instruction, then no one can touch us. Our position is definitely due to our books. Therefore, I'm always pressing on this point. All the groups are declining, including the Christians. We are being harassed by the authorities, and they're all Christians, because they're losing ground, and we are increasing, and they're trying to stop us. There is always this battle between the demons and the devotees, but the devotees always win because they are protected by Krishna. It's also significant that when they talk about this term of living, we've often discussed in these classes how Srila Prabhupada in 1969 in the Srimad Bhagavatam lecture in Los Angeles made a very nice point. What we have heard from the spiritual master, that is living. In other words, Prabhupada was not considering that his books would becoming obsolete and non-applicable and dead upon his departure. That is not why he wrote these books. In Berkeley, California, in July of 1975, when Srila Prabhupada was asked, what is going to happen to the movement when you die? I don't know if any one of you have ever seen the video, but it's interesting because Prabhupada started to laugh, says, I shall never die. I shall live for my books, and you will utilize. When they asked Prabhupada the direct question in 1968 in Seattle, when Madhavi says, Prabhupada, I was referring to a living spiritual master. And Prabhupada said, it's not a question of living spiritual master. When you read the Bible, you read Bhagavad-gītā, you're directly associating with the spiritual master. This false idea that some substitute for Srila Prabhupada is to be there to explain what Prabhupada meant, this is nonsense. That's why Prabhupada says in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, when in one purport, when the issue is raised that how can we associate with persons for a spiritual life, and Prabhupada says, associate not physically, but by logic and philosophy, by hearing from authority, from Srila Prabhupada. This is the point. Not that we emphasize a neophyte or a middle-class devotee ahead of Srila Prabhupada. That is not the proper understanding. Prabhupada clearly says in this Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Madhya Lila, chapter 24, text 330, only such a person, a topmost Mahabhagavata, can occupy the position of Acharya. But that seems to have been slipped by many people. They don't read properly. The brain is not clear. Their brain is confused. They're trying to say Prabhupada is like Vishwakarma Prabhu quoted. They say post-Prabhupada book area. What do you mean post-Prabhupada? This false idea. They use the term posthumous. That Prabhupada is posthumous. He's dead and gone. What about that lecture in 1975 in Georgia on the disappearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where Srila Prabhupada said, quote, "It is not that he is dead in God. That is not spiritual understanding. This false idea that you have to look at all corners to find some kind of a substitute for Prabhupada is nonsense. Prabhupada is available. He's available now. People have to first start to hear." That's why Prabhupada, in the lecture Letter to Rupanuga, made a very careful warning to all his disciples. Amongst my God brothers, none of them are qualified for becoming Acharya, unquote. Do they read these things? Do they understand these points? Because when Prabhupada came, so many of them were against him. They were criticizing him. They were criticizing his disciples. They were making propaganda against him, against our devotees. Prabhupada mentions that in the Nectar of Instruction. He mentions that in the Caitanya Caritamrta. To be safe, one should stick to Srila Prabhupada and make a very submissive, careful study of his teaching, of his books, of his lecture, his conversations. Then one is on a safe path. Otherwise, one becomes confused. Hare Krishna.
Exactly. And further, I wanted to bring up the point about Vani Vapu, the relationship of the devotee in terms of his association with Prabhupada in his Vani incarnation as opposed to his Vapu incarnation, manifestation. And Prabhupada would tell us that personal association with the pure devotee was very dangerous because familiarity breeds contempt. And in this particular situation, we saw some of these so-called leaders that Prabhupada appointed as GBC men and allowed them to also serve him personally, became contemptuous against him. Whereas the most important part of the preaching mission was the relationship between Srila Prabhupada and his temple presidents. And there's a great misunderstanding that took place in the society beginning back in the 70s. The GBC became an organization, I believe in 1972. Prabhupada compared the GBC of his movement at that time to the Indian Railroad, which was a very efficient, effective railroad. And Prabhupada, and it was also called the GBC. So he used that term and applied it to his own movement. And the roles, I think Vincott asked the question in the last class, and we brought up the direction of management as a point of reference. The Prabhupada did give specific direction how to run his society under his direction of management, and how to understand the relationship between himself, his temple presidents, and then his his sannyasis, and his GBC members. So can you possibly bring up the direction of management document for us, Vinkat? Do you have it available? I think what we might do, since we're moving towards the end of the class, the actual discussion, that we could carry on with the reading. And here we have, let me see if I can move my, Prabhupada's mentioning all of the temples that he had. And then we read that. Yep. And go down. Here's all the temples he's mentioning. I see that there's the Toronto temple. What's the address? Just slide back up again. So it was on Beverly Street back then. That's when I first went to the temple in 1969. So the Hamilton temple was not open then. So as we have, Vinkat, maybe you could start reading as we have increased our volume of activities.
Okay, sure.
Please.
As we have increased our volume of activities, now I think a governing body commission, hereinafter referred to as the GBC, should be established. I'm getting old, 75 years old. Therefore, at any time, I may be out of the scene. Therefore, I think it is necessary to give instruction to my disciples how they shall manage the whole institution. They are already managing individual centers represented by one president, one secretary, and one treasurer. And in my opinion, they are doing nice. But we still want more improvement in the standard of temple management, propaganda for Krishna consciousness, distribution of books and literatures, opening of new centers, and educating devotees to the right standard. Therefore, I have decided to adopt the following principles, and I hope my beloved disciples will kindly accept them. There was a meeting in San Francisco during the Rath Yatra Festival in 1970, and many presidents of the centers were present. In that meeting, it was resolved that an ad hoc committee be set up to form the constitution, which is taken into consideration. My duty was to first appoint 12 persons to my free choice amongst my disciples, and I do it now, and their names are as follows.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 12 names.
Let's read them out. I think it'd be worthwhile.
Shriman Rupanuga Das Adhikari, Shriman Bhagavan Das Adhikari, Shriman Shyam Sundar Das Adhikari, Shriman Satswarup Das Adhikari, Shriman Karandhar Das Adhikari, Shriman Hamsduta Das Adhikari, Shriman Tamal Krishna Das Adhikari, Shriman Sudama Das Adhikari, Shriman Balimardan Das Brahmachari, Shriman Jagadish Das Adhikari, Shriman Hayagriva Das Adhikari, Shriman Krishna Das Adhikari.
Just note, all married, except for Bali Mardan at the time. Go ahead. All grihastas.
These personalities are now considered as my direct representatives. While I'm living, they will act as my zonal secretaries, and after my demise, they will be known as executors. I have already awarded sannyas, or the renounced order of life, to some of my students, and they have also got very important duties to perform in this connection. The sannyasis will travel to our different centers for preaching purpose, as well as enlightening the members of the center for spiritual advancement. The sannyasis will suggest for opening new centers in suitable places, and the GBC will take action on it. As was stipulated by the ad hoc committee, the function of the GBC will be as follows, with particulars. Particulars of the Governing Body Commission. The purpose of the Governing Body Commission is to act as the instrument for the execution of the will of His Divine Grace. And further, number one, the GBC oversees all operations and management of ISKCON as it receives directions from Srila Prabhupada, and His Divine Grace has the final approval in all matters. Number two, His Divine Grace will select the initial 12 members of the GBC. In the succeeding years, the GBC will be elected by a vote of all temple presidents, who will vote for 8 from a ballot of all temple presidents, which may also include any...
Yeah, let me comment.
Yeah.
Just note here, everyone, elected by a vote of all temple presidents. Take note, the real soldiers in this war were the temple presidents, not the GBC. Go ahead. Keep reading.
Okay. elected by a vote of all temple presidents, who will vote for 8 from a ballot of all temple presidents, which may also include any secretary who is in charge of a temple. Those 8 with the greatest number of votes will be members for the next term of GBC. Srila Prabhupada will choose to retain 4 commissioners. In the event of Srila Prabhupada's absence, the retiring members will decide which 4 will remain. Number 3, the commissioners will serve for a period of 3 years, and they may be re-elected at the end of this period. Number 4, the chairman is elected by the GBC for each meeting. He has no veto power, but in event of a vote tie, his vote will decide. The same will apply for votes cast by mail between regular meetings. Number 5, throughout the year, each of the commissioners will stay with His Divine Grace for 1 month at a time and keep the other commissioners informed of His Divine Grace's instructions. Number 6, the primary objective of the GBC is to organize the opening of new temples and to maintain the established temples. Number 7, advice will be given by the GBC in cases of real property purchases, which shall be in the name of ISKCON Inc. Trucks or other vehicles will be purchased in the name of the local president. Number 8, removal of a temple president by the GBC requires support by the local temple members. Number 9, the GBC has no jurisdiction in the publication of manuscripts, which will be handled by a separate committee, profits to be returned to Srila Prabhupada. So far, my books are concerned, I'm setting up a different body of management known as the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. The trustees of this body are also members of the GBC, but their function is not dependent on the GBC. ISKCON Press was created for the executive publication of my books, exclusive publication of my books and literatures, and should be continued in that way. During my absence, no one shall live in my apartment. And it's signed by Srila Prabhupada. And there are some witnesses also.
Yeah, there's Bhagwan Das and Kurandar.
Yeah.
And somebody at the top there.
I'm
No,
not sure.
Rupanuga. It looks like
Yeah,
Rupanuga,
Rupanuga.
who was originally in New York, in Buffalo Temple. He came to Hamilton, was chanting on the street in '69, and was key in opening up the Hamilton Temple here. So he sent Minikatong and his wife from Buffalo to, not Minikatong, it was Dharmaraj and Gunamayi, I mentioned, Yaśodā Prabhu, and so that was their function. It wasn't to run or centralize the society, which has caused a complete destruction of the movement because of disobedience of the orders of the spiritual master. I wanted to ask our friend in our Prabhu Godbrother in Australia, Balaram Prabhu, because you were a temple president for a long time, your comments on the class today, of course, and this further discussion that we've opened up in terms of Sahajiism and disobedience to the spiritual master's orders.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. So where do we start? so much wonderful information. Right back to the start of the reading. One quick point I'd like to make. I noticed we have has been here for a few meetings, but Dasavatar Das, he's here with us, and I received a phone call from him yesterday. So this is the wonderful effect of the Prabhupada Disciples Association. In all the time I was temple president from roughly 1975, 75 through until 1989. So about 14 years altogether there. And Dasavatar, he joined with Sabhabati Prabhu and was working up with the New Govardhan Farm Project, and that was just around about the time when Srila Prabhupada concluded his pastimes with us at that time. So I personally hadn't really met him during that whole time. We were like a continent apart, like New York to Los Angeles, something like that. So we recognized on the Prabhupada Disciples Association, and also another devotee, Hanuman. I'm not sure if he's here today, but Hanuman from New Zealand. So wonderful effect that this, that the efforts of yourself, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, and Venkat Prabhu are doing to spread Krishna consciousness using the technology correctly. This is the proper use of technology. I mean, there's so much rubbish on the internet. I mean, you log on to, listen to a class you might have missed or something, and you're bombarded with all these horrendous ads and everything. So anyway, this is wonderful use of the technology. Actually, at the end of the reading, I just wanted to note, just haven't got my glasses on here, the last text number 116, very, very nice. It was Esubha Siddhanta Suna Kari Ekamana. Kindly hear with attention the conclusion of all these statements. So Krishnadas Kaviraj is what is that? Ekamana, hear with rapt attention. Prabhupada's used that word also at different times. Hear with rapt attention. So we have to appreciate the fact that Srila Prabhupada's words are coming from the transcendental world. This is any devotee who can appreciate this will very quickly understand the divine position of His Divine Grace. I mean, sometimes we use these words very lightly. His Divine Grace. That's the divine grace of the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada has appeared as His Divine Grace. We use that in capitals, His Divine Grace. We use capitals for the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada is the divine grace of Krishna. And I was reading the other day, I think Dipayana Prabhu gave me a book which had a lot of information about the Brahma Gayatri. Very nice little book. And there it was actually explained that the actual words of the spiritual master are coming in the line of the Sampradaya-Acharyas, and the Sampradaya-Acharyas are all basically unalloyed, pure devotees of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada had actually stated that they are in the Madhurya Ras. And that was a question that was asked. There was a quote. I don't have the quote right now, but we can find that. So we're understanding that this is the most exalted position in the parampara. And what Srila Prabhupada has done for us, you mentioned that with the use of technology and the internet, everything has been spread so effectively. However, there are still so many impediments that we can see. So much, it's simple for the simple, but so many people have got ulterior motives. We saw that. You just read through the list of the initial GBC members, the 12 body. So we could ask, where are they now? Where are they now? What is actually happening? We try not to criticize, but truth must be known. So what we have to do is remain firmly fixed with the words of Srila Prabhupada, reading his books, listening to his lectures. It's all there. Just like Mahotsa Prabhu, who unfortunately can't be with us on these classes because he's developing an 80-acre project just near the new Govardhan farm, which is going to be a very nice preaching agricultural project there. He's working with builders and everyone. But he mentioned to me this morning that there's it costs about $60, and it's got every single 2,500 classes of Srila Prabhupada that's all in one little $60 online machine. So I'm going to find out the information. Maybe you're aware of it, but he said it's just a wonderful thing. You can plug it in, and there's every single class from the time Srila Prabhupada came to America. So that's something to look forward to. If I can find out a bit more information on that, I'll let you know, and we can post it. But thank you very much for the class, a wonderful reading, and let's make our lives dedicated to Srila Prabhupada and spreading his glories. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you very much, Balaram Prabhu, and we look forward to continuing our work with you, and certainly appreciate that you've come on board with our team of devotees. This is the principle that Prabhupada was extolling in the early years, was this trust, love and trust amongst devotees. And Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, he commonly quotes the flower in the face, knife in the back way that things have gone on tragically. And this is all due to the ambition of some people to be involved in an organization for, again, Yaśoda commonly quotes this, for the pod disease, profit, adoration, and distinction. And this becomes apparent. So, Balaram Prabhu, I've written an article called ISKCON, Gaudiya Math Part 2. And I took the article from a few purports that Prabhupada had written here in the first canto, or the first volume of Caitanya-caritāmṛta, understanding that when Prabhupada was speaking in this book, this situation that is evolved in ISKCON was not manifest yet, but it had already manifested in Prabhupada's relationship with his own god brothers in the Gaudiya Math. And this situation is far worse now in our group than it was with Prabhupada in his group. Far worse. There's a lot more Sahajiism. There is a lot more profit and adoration and distinction going on with hundreds of imposter gurus.
And criminal activity.
Yeah, that's right. Unfortunately, very serious criminal activities as well. And all those things that are going on. It's not for us to discuss them at the class, but just for our group to be aware that these things are going on, and it is a real tragedy. And this is the function of the Hare Krishna Society, and the work that we're doing with the Prabhupada Disciples Association as its membership, and our plans moving forward to be able to deliver the truth, because the truth is what we're interested in. The truth is something, the absolute truth is something that will never die, no matter what other people do, no matter what other people say, no matter what type of espionage is brought forward against this effort. We will not stop in presenting Prabhupada is the actual living guru in his Vani incarnation. And this is the reality of this. So Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu has written a few quotes here on our chat. I'll get Vinkat to read them, if you don't mind, Yaśoda. Just
That's good. That's good.
Vinkat Prabhu, could you please read the quotes that Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu has given us?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So the first one was, I was very glad, this is a letter to Bahudak, January 11,
Bahudak.
1976.
Okay, I just want to say Bahudak was, we had the 4 presidents of Balaram in Canada, Bahudak in Vancouver, myself in Toronto, Nandikeshwar in Montreal.
I had a lot of time with Bahudak in India.
Yeah, and Lakshminath. So there were the 4. We all worked together as a brotherhood until the GBC got involved and ruined everything. Go ahead. Go ahead and read it.
I was very glad to learn how our devotees are coming out victorious in the preaching to the university professors and students. Other groups have no philosophy, nor do they have any idea of spiritual life, what to speak of living it. Our movement is authorized. Our books are based on the statements of the most exalted devotees. And if we follow strictly the guidelines for devotional service as they are given in the Nectar of Devotion and Nectar of Instruction, then no one can touch us. Our position is definitely due to our books. Therefore, I'm always pressing on this point. All the groups are declining, including the Christians. We are being harassed by the authorities, and they are all Christians. Because they are losing ground and we are increasing, they are trying to stop us. There's always this battle between the demons and the devotees, but the devotees always win because they are protected by Krishna.
And further, I believe there's another section there that he put.
Yeah, this is a letter to Bhavananda on October 28th, 1970.
Okay, please.
Please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter dated October 6, 1970, and noted the contents. I'm very glad to note your feelings of dependence on the mercy of Krishna and spiritual master. Yes, that is the way of surpassing the influence of Maya. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that Maya is very strong, unsurmountable, but one who surrenders to Krishna, Maya does not touch him. So all our books are as good as Krishna because we deal in the books about Krishna only. Therefore, taking shelter of these books means taking shelter of Krishna. There's no doubt about it. And if you stick to this principle, there will be no attack from Maya. So that was the extract from that letter.
So a consistent focus on repeating, learning from the spiritual master and repeating his words exactly. And in this way, you'll be potent. You'll be an ambassador. That's what we are. We're the ambassadors of Srila Prabhupada in presenting the philosophy correctly to other people. And it is very enlivening because if you repeat Prabhupada's words, they're unconquerable. Prabhupada's logic, Balaram, is so perfect. His examples are so deep. It's beyond the average person. It's a trend that oftentimes I speak to the different bhaktas and bhaktins here, and I use these examples. They'll go, "Oh, that's brilliant," because I'm repeating my spiritual master's words. There's some brilliance, I explain to them, and then they'll say things like, "I have no idea what you're talking about," because they're so covered over. They can't even figure out what Prabhupada. It takes time to become Krishna conscious. It takes time to understand this philosophy. But if we follow in the footsteps of our spiritual master carefully, then in due course, we will be successful. I had a long talk today earlier with Bhaktivedanta Singh in Sacramento, California. And I wanted him to share his understanding of the bona fide process of Krishna consciousness as opposed to a concocted process of Krishna consciousness, which is going on in some quarters on this planet now. Bhaktivedanta, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes. So your question about the bona fide understanding of Krishna consciousness, I was also infected with this living guru philosophy. I got preached to by others that I need the living guru, this, that. But I was always apprehensive about their political agenda. I saw that, okay, this system they have, it doesn't actually really make any sense. But I was not able to figure it out, until I met Yaśodā-nandana, yourself, Narayan, and I had various philosophical conversations and debated with many of them, and I basically got defeated. Then I was able to understand that, this Krishna consciousness philosophy is very, very simple. Prabhupada is the Ācārya, he's the guru. He has written the books. He has started the movement. There are senior devotees who participated in his manifest pastimes, who helped him, in his movement. and we are all his disciples. So everyone is, part of his Krishna conscious family. Now, he also had a system of management from 1966. Prabhupada says in the direction of management, there's the temple president, there's the treasurer, there's the secretary, and they're doing wonderfully. So the whole system of Krishna consciousness, from the philosophy to the management to the individual management of the temples and centers, which are all done locally by the local devotees, and the GBC's position as assistants to the temple presidents and them being elected by the temple presidents, was a very simple system of management. And because they disobeyed Srila Prabhupada's instructions, now the movement is in shambles. And different gurus, they own the properties, different organizations own the property, and there's various lawsuits that were inflicted on Prabhupada's movement because of the child abuse. So this is a total bewilderment to the conditioned soul, coming to Krishna consciousness. So all these things needs to be rectified, or people need to understand the whole situation that happened from 1966 all the way to 2023. So it's a big mess to figure out for a conditioned soul. So you Prabhupada disciples who participated directly in the manifest pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, with the books, with the management, unfortunately, you people are still here. So the neophytes or the new devotees should take advantage of their position and take help from the senior devotees and ask them the right questions, get the doubts, cleared away. Because as Kali Yuga progresses, everything will get more and more confusing.
That's well spoken. Very profound,
Thank you.
actually. Very profound for all of us to hear you speak as Bhaktaran Singh, who was born in 1983.
85, just a quick correction.
Oh, he's just a baby, eh, Balaram?
Yeah.
Yeah, Prabhupada, I was just noticing in the letter that was read as well, or in the direction of management document, Prabhupada says, I am 75 years old. So he doesn't know how long he'll be around. So that's a warning for all of us.
I'm 77.
You look good for your 77. So Prabhupada is, giving us a warning. It's profound. It is profound to get this understanding of how the time factor is affecting everyone. Although today I read that some devotee, 25 years old, some bhakta in some program, was killed in a car accident in the United States today, 25 years old. So we never know when we'll be called upon to leave the body. There is no guarantee, but I can only request all of us to come forward as we move forward and bring your talents and abilities to the table and help us to spread the mission. We have a new magazine that we're producing, the Hare Krishna magazine, and we're in the process of bringing that together in due course. And there's all kinds of opportunity for people to serve in that, in advertising and marketing, in distribution like that. So if you're interested in participating with us, by all means, reach out to the members that you see on the screen here, Yaśodā or Balaram or any of the people on the group here regularly attend, and we'll discuss with you how you can help us to spread the mission moving forward. Vinkat Prabhu, any comments from your side in Bangalore?
No comments particularly. There's
Yep.
Balaram Prabhu had his hand raised, and there's also a question in the chat. So
Oh, what's the chat question? We'll wind up soon, but give us the question.
it's a question to Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu from Gauramani Prabhu.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gauramani.
Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, please can you say something in regard about the fact that Srila Prabhupada at the same time says that when one visits a holy place, one should look for a realized soul and hear from them, and not only think to take a bath in the holy rivers. But then in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find explanation about how rare it is to find such pure devotees.
Well, that's the instruction, but one has also to use his intelligence to discern who are the real devotees and who are the imposter devotees. Prabhupada's expectation was that all of his disciples and followers would correctly represent him. I often gave this example that right now the society is so messed up, the original society that Prabhupada started, that we have people inventing new mantras. I mean, no one would have thought of this during Prabhupada's lifetime. I remember in 1976, there was a big Kirtan at Mayapur with Madhavisa, Guru Kripa, Vishnu Jan, Dilanath, so many devotees, so many stalwart devotees. And basically the Kirtan was not very complicated. People would sing Namam Vishnu Padaya, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Sri Krishna Caitanya, Hare Krishna. And sometimes at the end of the Kirtan, they would say Jai Prabhupada, Hari Bol once or twice. But now it's like an entirely different category that we see. I mean, people talk about going to the holy places to get enlightenment, to get bona fide instruction. But if the Kirtan is not according to the instruction of the Acharya, how is it bona fide? I mean, it's not a secret. This is all over the internet. They can't say, oh, you just made this up. Well, you can go on YouTube and you can listen to it. It's like a gypsy dancing. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Bolo, Sri Krishna Radhe. Well, okay, we have nothing against Radharani. Everybody is, we understand that. But Srila Prabhupada never instructed us to chant these kind of concocted mantras. And there's a couple of other ones like that. Why invent this? Why manufacture these new mantras? What to speak of all the book changes and all the Gopi Baba clubs and everything. So it's nice to say, I'm going to go to Vrindavan and get some instruction. Well, the difficulty we're facing, the current society no longer represents the original, non-adulterated, pure teachings of Srila Prabhupada. And I know some people are going to be upset with that. Who are you to say that? Well, we're giving you examples. You've changed the books. You've changed the method of Kirtan. You've invented so many things with deity worship and offering boga. So why do that? Prabhupada did not want every change every 6 months. That is not what Prabhupada was teaching. He wanted the GBC to prevent this exact situation we're facing. What to speak of the other things that are going on with alleged criminal activities and alleged child molestation and child abuse and embezzlement of vast sums of money. There's a lot of problems right now, a lot of problems. And because we have a group of people who think that they can say anything, do anything, no one can do anything about it. Well, Krishna is doing something about it because a lot of devotees are waking up and not accepting what they say. I want to read here from something. This is relevant to what we're saying. I put it in the chat. Prabhupada says, it is sometimes misunderstood that if one has to associate with persons engaged in devotional service, he will not be able to solve the economic problems. To answer this argument, it is described here that to associate with liberated persons, one has to associate with liberated persons not directly or physically, but by understanding through philosophy and logic the problems of life. It is stated here, Darshanaya Buddhya, one has to see perfectly and with intelligence and yogic practice. I can't see the right side of the thing here because of all the screen, but basically Prabhupada is making this point very clear through logic and philosophy. That is why Prabhupada spent so much time and gave so many instructions, give them my books. And now the movement, the biggest crisis in the movement, along with all the other things we've discussed, is this changing of the books. You're directly disregarding, offending, and minimizing the Acharya. You have no right to change Prabhupada's words. Prabhupada personally told me on the 22nd of June, 1977, after the rascal editor's conversation in Vrindavan in his room, when everybody dispersed, and somewhere or other I ended up in front of him, and Prabhupada took his paperweight and slammed it on the desk, and I was very startled. And Prabhupada pointed his finger and said, you there, you go tell these GBCs if they change one word of what I've written.
Can I call you back in 10 minutes?
It will spoil everything I've done. So this is a problem we're facing. How many words have been changed in Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita? How many words have been changed in the Bhagavad? There's a devotee in India, in South India, who analyzed that they've made more than 21,000 changes in the first 4 cantos of the Bhagavatam. Who authorized all that? And many of these changes were being made during Prabhupada's manifested presence. When Prabhupada found out about it, he says, they cannot change anything. The next printing again should be the original way. In other words, the first edition. But some people don't like this. They say, oh no, Prabhupada said you can edit this, you can edit that, you can do this, you can do that. But then you are changing the meaning. You're changing the purport. Look what they've done in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 34. From he has seen the truth to they have seen the truth. And then they kicked out the pictures of Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji, and Jagannath Das. Who are you to kick out these great acharyas in our illustrious line of predecessor acharyas? Who gave you the authority to kick them out of the Bhagavad Gita? Who do you think you are? No one has the authority to do that. If Prabhupada put him in there, not only that, there was that picture of Prabhupada sitting at the desk. Under Prabhupada, there was a title, the greatest exponent of Krishna consciousness in the Western world. They took that out. Who are you to take that out? Did Prabhupada ever give you, any of you GBCs and editors, a letter to you telling that you should take that out? Who do you think you are? Don't think that people are not noticing. There's a personality in the universe, Chitragupta, Yamaraj's assistant. He's noticing all this. What to speak of all the child molestation, the embezzlement, the rascal, the kicking, banning, beating, suing devotees. Don't think there's not going to be any reaction. There will be. Now you can say, oh, you people are making big Vaishnava aparads, criticizing Srila. No. We're not interested in fault finding. We are fact finding. Do not change Prabhupada's instructions. Do not change his books. Do not pollute the purity of this movement. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, well, that's a wonderful explanation of how to ruin a movement by our godbrothers, and it is unfortunate, very unfortunate and sad, but there is a positive side to this. And the positive side is the Hare Krishna Society and the Prabhupada Disciples Association. And, you know, we want you to come forward, all of you in our group. We have a large group of people. We're not a top-heavy group. We're a team of people working together. I sent out some emails to our group today. I think, Balaram, you got it in your YouTube on your Google Drive. We'll be discussing it tomorrow night at our media team meeting on how we're going to bring our plans into reality and continue to propagate properly the truth of the matter in terms of Krishna consciousness, which is really our focus. This exposure of the problems of the other group are there just so that we understand what's happened. And it has come out today in the reading, Gaudiya Mat Part 2. Prabhupada's explaining it, how he went through the same things. We're going through the same things, but the future looks so bright, we're going to have to wear shades. And that's the idea. We're moving forward in a positive way with our preaching work and our making of new devotees who are properly, not like Bhaktivedanta Singh, who spoke tonight so profoundly here at the class and said that he had to go through all kinds of obstacles to find devotees that were telling him the truth that made sense. And in this way, he could take up the process of Krishna consciousness properly. So all glories to you, Ron Singh. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everyone for attending the class this evening and dealing with the discussion at length. And we'll carry on with our program, our Sadhana Bhakti weekly program. On Saturday morning will be Bhagavad Gita class, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Canada and the US. And Sunday morning, Srimad Bhagavatam class. Yasoda, I have to say, I'm loving the Srimad Bhagavatam class, reading from the 62 version of the Bhagavatam. It's just amazing. It takes me back in time, Balaram, so that we don't feel like we're 77 or 75, that we're still young men, 24, 25.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that actually, Prabhupada coined the phrase, the positive alternative. Right? We had that on the side of the big bus at Dwapiyana.
Yeah.
We used to travel the whole length of the east coast of Australia, every town and village in the 1972, 73. So we're now presenting the real positive alternative. This is the point, the real positive alternative. And
Exactly.
I just want to say, sometimes devotees say, how do I know if I'm advancing? I mean, with our sadhana and stuff. If you're enthusiastic to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, if you're enthusiastic to read, enthusiastic to rise early, chant your rounds, if you're worshipping at home, enthusiastic to worship your Guru Gauranga altar. If you've got enthusiasm for those things, that is the proof's in the pudding, as we say. So if we're enthusiastic to do those things, Prabhupada, I was listening to a lecture just recently, and Srila Prabhupada said that we practice our Krishna consciousness in parallel lines. He said we practice all of our sadhana, our chanting, our worship, reading, but at the same time, we have to practice giving up anathas. He said, there's no use just doing, I've got my program, but so many other distractions. I mean, we're fighting these all the time. So we have to be constantly aware of the attack of Maya. She'll come in at any moment. She'll come in and try and divert us. So at the same time, we have to, after we've been practicing for so long, 50 years of Krishna consciousness, and the mind is still, taken away by something that we see. So, it's a constant war. And Prabhupada said, if we group together, we've all been fragmented for so long, for the last 20, 30 years or so since our temple days. But now, due to the wonderful association, we're coming together like those strong sticks. So we have to take good association. And if anyone wants to, call or contact, especially some of the senior devotees that are here, that is very much appreciated. So thank you very much, everyone, for the wonderful association. Hare Krishna.
Thank you from down under in Australia. Thank
Under
you.
Krishna's lotus feet, hopefully.
It's a great thing. And, we want to encourage you to continue on with your wonderful work there in association with your God brothers and create a possible situation for others to come as we progress forward in developing a membership, a congregation of people that are looking for an alternative, like you said. We are the positive alternative. I know that we have Robert from Poland, Vinkat?
Yeah, Robert from Poland is here in Bangalore. He's on his way to Mahamsa Prabhu's farm in Tamil Nadu. He was here till now. He just went downstairs, but
That's fine.
Yeah,
It's a long class here. So, the fact of the matter is we're gaining ground, everybody. So stay enlivened. And like Balaram so nicely said, reach out if you have difficulty or if you want to have questions answered. And we'll be increasing our information coming from the Prabhupada Disciples Association on many levels as we unfold our program according to Prabhupada's plans and directions that we've received from him. So Venkat Prabhu, please, let's bring forward the beautiful Kirtan from the 60s. You can listen to the chant along, everyone, and back home, back to Godhead in association with the Prabhupada disciples here on this Zoom meeting. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Krishna Caitanya Caritamrta Shri Caitanya-caritamrta Shivāsadi Gaurākta-vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Caitanya-caritamrta Shivāsadi Gaurākta-vrinda Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Caitanya-caritamrta Shivāsadi Gaurākta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.